Both.
You
Both
look so
and.
beautiful.
I look beautiful. Look at you.
Wait, hold on.
I feel like I'm not done up enough. I feel like I should go get a collared shirt on or something.
Babe, you're perfect. Listen.
It's been a long time.
I had to
I
do
love
that.
it.
I had
Yeah,
to
you
do
did.
that.
We had to get into it.
Babe,
Yes, love.
I'm excited.
I'm excited.
It's going to be perfect. Do you have the notes?
I want to talk about, obviously, the dynamic that we have and how I was like thinking about, oh, okay, yeah, like this is what I want to talk about with you. I was just thinking about things that I wanted to say and how I wanted to tell everyone how wonderful you are and how you bring out the best me and why people shouldn't be like, what I really want to hammer home to people is look for a Sarah Malone. guys look for your Sarah Malone and be the guy that Sarah Malone deserves in your relationship, but before you get into that relationship, because that karmic cycle is going to come back for you. That works for me. You look so gorgeous.
You look so cute and handsome.
You look so gorgeous.
Well, look
Don't
at the
mind
shirt
me
I wore.
if like my face is like
I feel like I should include this whole portion in the episode.
You can if you want, but I don't mind. They can see me oogling at you.
They'll be able to see it, and they'll probably be able to feel it too. Okay, well, you ready to roll?
Let's roll, baby.
All right.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Should we do a little prayer?
Yes. Would you like to lead or would you like me to?
I want you to lead.
You sure?
Yes.
All right. Well, Lord, we just first of all thank you so much for bringing us together in such a way that we have a voice, that we have a platform to spread a message of love, of union, of divine union, and the mystery that connects two souls, one to another. I just ask that you lead and be the guide behind and in front of our voices, that you would allow it to travel to people that really need this message, and that you allow it to sink deeply into their being so that it resonates in a way that produces change and inspiration in any way that they need at that time. Please bless our words and our mission going forward. Just allow this episode and many more to come to reverberate like a megaphone and allow it to reach as many ears and hearts as possible. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah. No, I feel like you said everything perfectly, as you always do. So
Well, we ask all this in your name we pray. Amen. Send.
In Jesus' name, amen.
Ooh, I like that you added in Jesus' name.
Yeah. Say it loud and proud, baby.
Say it loud and say, oh, I love you.
I love you.
All right, I'm going to roll. You ready?
Let's do this.
Welcome to Ignite the Spark Within, a podcast designed to do just that. Ignite your spark within you. I'm your host, Sarah Malone, owner of Spark Fitness and Lifestyle Coaching and voted Yahoo Finance's top 10 female coaches to follow in 2021. I believe everyone has a fire inside them, a powerful purpose, a story waiting to be told, and everyone can uncover and unleash this power. Every day you have the choice to either let your experiences shape you or take control and use your experiences to shape the world around you. You were made to experience happiness, freedom, joy, purpose, love, passion, and abundance. Disrupt the status quo, think for yourself, and join forces with those around you doing the same. Join me for thought-provoking conversations along with the strategies needed in order to help you ignite your spark within.
Well, welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, I'm extremely excited for not only the message, but the guest that I am blessed to host today's show with. Before we get into the show itself and the topic, I'd like to first thank you and always ask you to please share, rate, and subscribe. The mission with this show is to reach as many eyes and ears and hearts as possible, and this helps us to do that. It's a free way of doing that. And if you do feel called, you can donate to the show with the link in the show notes. Also, just a couple of announcements. We do have the online courses still available on the website. We have mind, body, and spirit. And if you'd like to connect all three of those together, since you are an entire being, you can bundle those up and pursue and continue your own growth. You can find those on the website at sparkflc.com. But more importantly, I'm very eager to get to the message of today's show. Number one, it's a topic that I'm extremely passionate about, and it goes from a very micro perspective to a very macro perspective. And while it would be valuable for me to discuss this by myself, because I hold masculine and feminine within myself, as do you and every single one of us, I thought it would be better to do this show with my partner, with my love, who is my masculine and who also has, in some ways, all of us are works of art, but in his own ways have harmonized his own masculine and feminine. And this is a topic that we're both extremely passionate about. Number one, because we live it and it's created peace individually. But number two, because it has allowed us to unite ourselves. And so I'm blessed to be here with my partner, James.
How's
Hi,
it going?
James.
How are you, love?
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about. But what we really want to do, our mission with this show is to both share. So there are levels to this, right? Like there is the individual level of masculine, feminine within each of us. Then there's the masculine, feminine in partnership, which is what we've really recently discovered by uniting ourselves. And then there's the masculine, feminine in the collective of humanity. So what we'd really like to do is take this in chunks and just see how far we get in this first one. I'm sure we'll be back for follow-ups on this show. But I want to start by just kind of telling our story a little bit. And at least from my perspective, sharing how I got to the place where I was even ready and able to see. I had eyes and ears and a heart to see James, and then James can tell his story and how he found me, which we both know the story, but y'all don't. So here we go. Are you ready, babe?
I'm ready, love. Take it away. Ladies first.
So I mean, many of you, my listeners, already know, many of you guys know my story already, but you don't really know my relationship story. And so I'm sure I can identify with many people when I say I've been through my share of toxic and painful relationships, ones that just never worked out, and for great reason, because to me, I feel like looking back now that I'm here with James, and honestly, like even before I met you, I was realizing that all of those relationships were just kind of karmic lessons for me in order to come to some sort of completion within. And, most of you guys know I had my marriage that ended, and it sent me into like a catapult of ascension and growth in all of the best ways possible. But it was 5 years of how I reflect back on it, misery. Like it was 5 years of pain and deception and all of those things. And I look back now realizing that the reason I was even able to put myself into that situation is because there was something off inside of me with my own masculine, feminine, with my own polarities, with the healing of my feminine or the wounded feminine within me that was seeking a masculine presence in order to complete me. And so coming from that marriage, I, of course, went on my own healing and growth journey, which is where you find me today. But more importantly, for the purposes of this episode and for what James and I are going to be sharing, I want to describe where I was like right before I met James. And so I've always been a person who has craved relationship, craved companionship, craved love. I mean, I think we all do. It's a human need, right? It's a human desire of all of us. And so I love love. I wanted love. I wanted that connection. I didn't necessarily understand that what I truly wanted was that soul connection. And looking back, I realized that I always did, because James and I will talk about moments in our lives when we were actually connecting with each other. We just didn't realize it. And so we can talk about the nature of twin flames. Believe that we are soul partners, and that the communication that we were having just in thoughts of each other, like wondering where this person was a direct communication to the other person. So anyhow, months before I met James, I'm doing my own spiritual growth and evolution. And I finally got to a place actually got to a place in my heart space where I had given this area of my life up to God. I had said, listen, God, you know the desires of my heart. And it seems to be that every relationship so far has failed, and failed miserably and painfully. And, I thank you for those times, because they've brought such great growth and lessons, but also like, do you want me to be single for the rest of my life? Because if I have to choose between my mission and a partner where I don't feel whole, then I will gladly be single. But you also know that this is not a desire for me. So I just, like, weeks before I met James, I surrendered this area completely in my heart space. Every morning I would go on a walk and I would pray, I'm giving this up to you. Like, I don't know what I need in a man. You do. So would you just provide that man for me? And I trust that you're bringing him in. And in the meantime, just prepare me and equip me for this man. We're going to vibe so well here. As I was asking instead of shifting my heart to being like, give me, I was asking, hey, I trust that you have just the man created for me. And I trust you're going to bring him in as I'm ready, but would you just get me ready? So I was releasing this to him weeks before I met James. And then I felt so good about it. I felt finally, for the first time, I just dropped into a space where I didn't need it. Like, of course it's still a need, but I wasn't like, I need this. I wasn't obsessed with it, focused on drawing it in. I'd given it up. And babe, at any point, if you want to interject, because I can see you getting passionate, like, feel free.
Well, this is a thought that just occurred to me. So we've talked about this before, and like Sarah, my entire life I've been craving that companionship. I love hard. I'm very in touch with my sort of sentimental feminine side. I'm a very sensitive guy. I take complete ownership over that. And I just kept finding myself in these relationships where it just wasn't working. It was like, something would start. Maybe I could talk more a little bit about that in my past. But first, I'd like to touch on what you said, is that, and this is just a realization I had now, you came into our relationship. We're talking about the masculine and the feminine. You came into our relationship ready for me in a very feminine way. It was intuitive. It was creative. It was this sort of like whatever God has, right? It wasn't like, this is what I want. This is, these are the traits that I'm looking for. Whereas I came from it in a very masculine way, where I was like, she's got to like guns. She's got to like God. She's got to want babies, And I was like, she's got to have her stuff together. Like, it was like very much like as I got to know you very quickly, and as we connected, I was like, whoa, she's checking off this box that I have. This box, this box, this box, this box, all the boxes. It was like, there was also the connection. It wasn't this superficial, like, oh, you like guns. It was like, what do you want in life? What do you want to, how do you want to structure your life? How's your communication style? What are your love languages? We got into all of that so quickly, and it was so just absolutely obvious to me as we got to know each other. Oh, this is like my person. This is my person. This is the other half of my soul. What do I tell you all the time?
You're the other half of my soul.
Exactly.
Because we literally have that connection where I'll be thinking or feeling something and I'm like, whoa, what's up? And I'll text him or call him and something's going on. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I felt that. And vice versa. He'll pick up on something when I'm talking about you specifically, you'll feel it. And this is really what was so attractive for me, is because I told you this and you didn't even realize it. I said, you know what is so attractive for me about you? And one of the reasons, and we'll get into the safety piece of what true safety is in relationship, especially for a female, right? Is because you have your masculine and feminine so harmonized, and you're so secure in that your intuitive nature and and the way that you listen to your intuition and the way that you're very aware and you go into your emotions made me feel safe to be able to do all of that. And it's interesting hearing you say that, because I've never heard you say it like that before.
Well, it's like I said, I just had that realization just now, thinking about the kind of harmony between the masculine and the feminine. And I always thought it was a little bit odd how, like, I was like kind of thinking almost to myself when you said, oh, I didn't have any checklist. I just gave it up to God. It kind of made me feel like, oh, did I go about this the wrong way? Well, obviously not. I found you. But it just made me realize, oh, I actually did come at this from a point that is a more masculine nature, right? It's a very structured way of looking at, this is my dream woman and this is my angel. And you hit every single check mark, like with flying colors. It was like, if you were past inspection, you got an A++. I don't know how the Better Business Bureau rates things, but it's like, is it a AAA rating or something? I don't know. But well, I mean, you hit everything so perfectly.
I guess you're right, because what I was looking for, and just to describe how we met through a mutual friend of ours, which is just so random because I mean, gosh, I don't even know if we have time to tell that story.
Kiara.
Thank you, Kiara Burns. If you're listening, we love you so much. But James met a girl named Kiara 7 years ago in Thailand.
6 years ago, but
6 years ago in Thailand on a diving.
We were going through our open water course to learn how to scuba dive.
So these two meet and hit it off immediately, and then just kind of kept in contact a little bit over the past 6 years. And Kiara and I met by random chance at the gym, and I've never even seen her since then. And we clicked and we vibed. And then weeks later, we were just picking back up the conversation. And she's like, hey, my friend's in town. Do you want to go for a hike with us? And I'm like, definitely. And it happened to be James. And I almost missed the hike. And I showed up at the last minute and there's James. And at first it was like, no expectation. I wasn't looking. I was just showing up and I was just being me. And something was just resonating with me about him that I never even considered to be romantic at the time. And we both say this, like, I just felt like, wow, cool person, cool connection. I love the way he thinks. But immediately there was a telepathic connection between us, because I had picked up something on our hike that we were on. And I just was like, I just need to pause for a second and tell you how proud I am of you. And you're like, why? And I'm like, well, because I just know you've been through a lot of pain and you've fought through it and you've remained so pure. And it was like, I didn't know at the time what was happening, but I could feel that. And this is where the intuitive side comes in. It's like, without either of us trying or looking or forcing, there was a connection being made. It wasn't like I was connecting with you, you were connecting with me. There was a connection being made. I feel like it was orchestrated. And it wasn't until later that we both were like, okay, dummies, like, how long is this going to take you guys to realize what's happening here? Which I think, God's probably like, okay, good job, guys. We saw it pretty quickly.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's like where I came into our relationship with finally getting into my own feminine and feeling safe in that, because if I didn't feel safe in that, I wouldn't have been able to be so open to, and I'm not even going to say see, but to feel you, to feel what your presence was doing to me, and providing for me, which I can go into that later because it's so much that you provide for me without even trying to do it. So yeah, just now I'd love to hear where you're coming from. And of course, my listeners would love to hear where you came from into our relationship too.
Yeah. So, how's this sound? I'm trying to block out the wind here.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So it doesn't. Okay, good. So yeah, I came from, I had gotten out of a relationship that, like Sarah, probably wasn't working out, or it probably had a bit of toxicity to it. And I say probably, it definitely had a bit of toxicity to it. And I came out of that relationship, and I had just sent myself on a mission after that to just completely enjoy being me. I went to Montana and I picked up snowboarding after like 8 years of not snowboarding, and went on a road trip through Utah with a friend from back here in Oregon, which is where I am now. And yeah, just made my way down to Arizona, where I went and hiked into the Grand Canyon, and I reached out to Kiara and I just said, hey, I'm in the area, like, would love to see you. So basically where I was like on this radical self-love mission. It was like, what is James going to do to be the best James that James can be? And that was my mission. That was my whole goal. And I had just gotten done. I told Sarah about this on the phone, but I had just gotten done talking to a friend. I used to live in Utah. I went to high school in Utah, and I had just gotten done talking to a friend. I spent a few days with her in Utah, and we were sitting on her couch, and we were both kind of tired of looking for our person. We were both thinking like, we're doing all the right things. We're making the right steps. We're seeing red flags as they appear, and we're actively cutting those things out of our lives, right? Like we're being selfish in terms of love, but selfish in a good way, not in selfish in a way that's like people pleasing. It's selfishness. I don't like that word.
It's
because
like
I don't like the insinuation.
selfishness. It's like selflessly selfish.
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it is selflessly selfish because you're also eventually that the effects of your relationship and the effects that your relationship have on you are going to reverberate in the world. Right. And that's where the selfish part comes in, because you have to be selfish. You have to say, no, I'm not going to put up with this behavior.
Yeah.
I see this in this person and I'm going to turn the other way. Right. Or I'm going to quickly establish my boundaries. I'm going to quickly say, not what I want out of this relationship. And the other person can either change or they can take a hike, you know? It's not like, it's not a heartless thing, right? If I love someone, if I truly care about the people around me, especially a potential partner, right? And I start to see a pattern or a behavior in them, that's not jiving with me, right?
Or especially if that potential pattern or behavior is hurtful or harmful to either you as a person, them as a person, or the relationship as a totality, then it is our responsibility, in my opinion, to speak up, because you know, if you truly care about them, and of course yourself first, and this is where it comes from, like instead of saying like it's selfish, it's self-focused, it's self first, because I know if I'm not my best self, if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not putting myself and the love with myself first, then I'm not going to be good for you. That chips away at my personality and my ability to show up for you. And then eventually that chips at you, and that chips at the relationship. So if I really cared about you, and I'm just saying this from my perspective right now, but because I care so much about James, I'm like, if I feel in a moment where I'm like, I'm off, I need space, I need time to get my head right, I need time to pray, I need quiet time, I need rest, I need whatever. Here are my needs. And it's like, and this is like kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but because there's such a balance, James has responded to me in a way that's like, yes, do it, get yourself right, because he knows that when I'm right, he gets the best of me. And so it's like, you don't even have to necessarily say, I don't accept this in you, get away. But like, all this is with love. But when boundaries are set, they can be done so eloquently, and sometimes they don't even need to be said. It's like sometimes they don't even need to be, here's my boundary. It's like, just by acting and how you treat yourself. I can't even tell you guys how many times James has responded to me without me having to say a single word, but because of number one, how he sees me care for myself. He's going to match that. And actually he probably cares for me better than I care for myself. But the point is that you're going to attract what you tolerate and how you treat yourself.
I don't think that's true. I think no one's going to care for you the way you care for you, because you are just, the way you take care of yourself is, that's another thing that is so attractive to me about you, and so heartwarming for me to see in you, is that level of self-care, that level of self-love, that level of awareness for what you need. Oh my gosh. It's like, guys, get yourself one of those. Ladies, be that. You know what I mean? It's like, you have such a fine-tuned, I guess, antenna for what you need, that it makes it so easy for me, because I'm a dummy. Guys are dummies. I mean, we are. There's a certain level of, like, I could be, the most responsive and intuitive guy in the world, but there are going to be times where I just need you to tell me, I'm going to need you to say, hey, I need this right now. Oh, of course, and it's like just responding to that. But the way you do it, and I want to harp on that for your listeners, because you did have something that, came up between us, and the way you presented it to me was completely with love. It wasn't out of anger. It wasn't out of, there was no tone to it that spoke anything other than, hey, this is what I need. And it just that simple response. And this is what I want your women out there to hear, and men, if there is something that you need to talk about, do it from a place of love. See how much further it gets you. See how much further it gets you to approach any issue that you have from a place of, I love you, I need this. I care about you. I care about myself. Therefore, I need this. In order for me to best be a part of your life, please help me resolve this. Rather than you do this, you do that. I see so many times in my own past relationships, I've gotten that. Guess what it invokes in me?
Here's the thing though, like, and this is where it comes down to the individual masculine, feminine within, because I do believe this is, oh my gosh.
Here we go. I had this conversation with her. I said, anytime you say, oh my gosh, because she does this in her podcast. This is one thing. Sorry, I'm going to detrack. I'm going to derail here for a little bit. But I love this when I'm listening to her podcast. I love hearing, oh my gosh. Like she always does like the little slap too at the end. Like it's great. Oh my gosh, you guys. Like, so I told her, I was like, anytime you say that, I'm going to be like, here we go.
Here we go.
So expect that for the rest of the podcast, guys.
Well, I guess it's a thing. So, so this is the thing. I can't stress this enough. The value of being patient and waiting, because here's the thing. This, everyone's like, oh, we just got to work on communication. We got to work on communication. It's like, no, what you really need to work on is your own internal healing of your feminine and healing of your masculine. Because if I'm coming at this into this relationship in a very in as unhealed a state that would cause me to do reactionary responses rather than respond, like we had, right? We had a conversation where I was responding to something that happened, not reacting to it. And it's not like I've always been that way, but if I'm wounded enough, if I'm not healed, at least to a certain point, which is what we came into this relationship with, we had healed enough of our masculine and feminine wounds from mom and dad, right? That's where they come from. And then other relationships, because we just kind of perpetuate those mom and dad cycles in other relationships until we are strong enough to heal enough of them. So we came into it in an enough healed place to where when I had something that bothered me, or we had collectively, you and I simultaneously had something that had happened, the same thing that almost caused, it could have caused something like a pushback in our relationship. And because of the fact that my feminine had been healed enough, my masculine had been healed enough, and same with yours, I was able to communicate with you in a way that was extremely feminine and also assertive, right? Because the qualities of feminine are in some ways very similar to the qualities of masculine. They just show up differently, right? So what I did was courageous. It was bold. It was an action, but at the same time, it was very nurturing and receptive and open and soft. And that provided a space, but you responded to me in a way that was open and receptive and strong, and it created this safety between us that I was like, okay, I know I can tell him, and like I can go through emotional experiences knowing that this man is going to be a mountain for me, and he's going to stand strong in the face of that and make sure that number one, I feel heard, number two, I feel seen, and number three, feel loved. Like you did not once energetically withdraw love from me in the midst of a potential conflict. And that for me, ladies, women, like this is this beautiful like ping-ponging dynamic of the masculine feminine, both within myself, because I was like, oh God, I don't want to talk about this. Past relationships, me bringing up something that hurt my feelings, didn't always go very well. You know what I mean? So I could have withdrawn in that fear and let that pain fester. But what would have happened to our relationship would have not been good.
Well, I'd like to talk about the thing, and we don't have to if you don't want to, but I'd like to talk about the thing that happened to us both independently, where we both kind of had sort of like evil forces working through other people to
Yes.
sort of try to divide us.
Yep.
And it was nothing that
Yes.
either one of us did. It wasn't even a conflict between us.
Yeah.
It was quite literally, in both of our, perspective, it was the force of evil trying to separate two people who had come together in the unity of God.
Yes. Yeah. So before we do that, let's talk about the unity with God, because when the moment I realized how strong our dynamic was because both of us leveled up in our own individual missions like 10x. So you guys, like the power of James and I coming together increased our potential individually like 10x. I mean, I know I can say that for myself, and babe, I see it in you. So I'm just going to speak for you on that one.
Yeah. Go ahead. Feel free to speak about that one.
And that's when that is how you know that it's of God. And this comes back to my passionate request to take your time, because like you guys, until you're at a healed enough point, you're choosing partners from a wounded place, not a healed place.
Yes.
And I know that you've experienced this, babe. I know I have, and I know a lot of people do this. And this is why divorce rates are so high in some ways, right? We've talked about the religious side of that too. But in some ways, the divorce rates are so high because people are choosing partners. They're choosing to have partners supplement their wounds rather than take the time to heal and then find their divine counterpart like you and I are.
Right.
So
I don't think that the ability to find their divine counterpart is possible if they're looking from a place of, I just want love, rather than I want love in myself.
Babe,
it's like your state of being versus doing, right? You did a podcast on that. I'm going to bring it back to that because this is something we talked about, and I want to bring it up because I want other people to think about the connection that you have made in previous podcasts and how it relates to this, right?
Yes.
If you're in a state of love, if you're in love, right? Right? We are in love, you and I. But it's not that we are, quote, in love with each other, which we are, but we are both separately in a state of love, joined together, right? We are living in love together, right? We're in love with each other. This is what, we always talk about this, but like two little kids running around in the forest when we're together,
Yeah.
Because, and that's where I thrive. Hence I'm in the forest right now. This is how we operate. This is we are in a state of love.
Yeah.
And
like independently of each other, which then brings us, when we're together, we are in love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring that point up, but you can.
Well, that's beautifully said. And it kind of reminds me, and I mentally bookmarking the fact that we have to bring up this thing that happened to us so that we can showcase how the forces of evil, when something as powerful as divine love comes together, attempts to rip it apart, and how to navigate through that, right? Because it's important. Like we need tools to, because this is relationship 101. Like we are all in the business of relationships, whether it be romantic or just relationship in general. So how do we navigate the forces of evil? But what I want to talk about super quick is like how you have found, because this is different, right? And this is so important because women out there, I'm talking directly to you right now, because so often I see women try to force their men into finding spirituality or harmony or peace or heal their masculine or their feminine their way. Like if you're not going to the meditation things that I'm going to, the sound bath, the this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, you're not doing it right, and then and then of course it just pushes their man away from it altogether. And they're like, well, screw it. I don't want anything to do with the spirituality. I don't want anything to do with ascension. I don't want anything to do with healing. Right. But you have, and this is why I feel so safe with you, is because you have pursued your healing and your spirituality and your connection with God in a way that works beautifully for you. And I just want to say this because you somehow don't realize this yet, but you will. You are so brilliant. Like you.
Thank you, but why? This is I always get these grandiose compliments from you, and I love it and I appreciate it. I don't get it.
No. Here's the thing though, guys, men and women both alike, right? I can recognize the brilliance in James. And by the way, his brilliance is completely different than mine. Well, kind of. We've both found the same things, but the way that we've done it is completely different. And I love that. I love that about you because it shows your commitment to reaching a place of harmony, of peace, of healing, of the best version of you. And it comes from such a purity, right? So like, I want to know, and I want other people to know how you've done that coming from the masculine side. How have you come into such harmony and balance internally with your masculine and feminine?
So there are a few ways. Okay, I feel like I'd have to go back all the way to my childhood for this one, but I grew up with a military father. He's a pretty strict guy. I love you, Dad, but let's face it, you were pretty strict. And for that, I appreciate you because it taught me discipline. It taught me the masculine. It taught me the sort of self-governance required to have a strong masculine sense. As I got older, I explored music, right? I started playing guitar when I was 15, and I got into all sorts of creative expressions. I loved to draw when I was in high school. When I went to college, when I was 28, I got into ceramics and I started doing pottery. More specifically, I after I got out of the military when I was 22, I went and I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail. And for anyone of your listeners that don't know what the Pacific Crest Trail is, it's a 2,600 mile, 2,650 trail that goes from the Mexican border to the Canadian border. And so I hiked that in 2016 and really got out of the sort of discipline structured, I got to be in a job, I got to have good credit, I got to, like all of these like very kind of capitalistic mindsets that we put ourselves in this society. I was able to break away from all of that. And it was literally, I would wake up, I would have my little morning routine, I would get my bag all ready, I would organize everything. And then it was just like, what's the day going to bring me? Going to feel today? Like, what do I feel like doing? Do I feel like hiking 20 miles? Do I feel like hiking 5 miles to this lake, taking a swim and just spending the whole day there? But there was this sort of freedom and that was this sort of femininity, right? That was like the
flow.
Going with the flow of whatever happens. And so many beautiful things happen. So many beautiful things. I mean, it was like, oh, I broke my guitar string. I went into town and I texted my buddy and I was like, hey, do you know anyone in Leavenworth, Washington that has a guitar string? And he's like, yeah, actually, I do. So, it was like everything just always worked out. And that kind of taught me that no matter what happens in life, it's all gonna be fine. God provides. There's the saying on the trail provides. Replace that in life with God. God will provide whatever happens in your life, whatever you're going through, whatever is happening. God will provide. If you just trust him, you know, and that's sort of like the obedient follower, right? The feminine kind of, not to say that femininity is directly relation to following, but it sort of is. I mean, the masculine is the structure, the feminine is the flow, the go. And once you can follow into structuring your life, having the discipline, you say this all the time and I love it. Discipline creates freedom. Yeah. And once you can follow or fall into that balance of structuring your life in a way while also allowing for whatever to come in, you know, whatever to happen, right?
Yeah.
Something happens that's unforeseen, that's not in my plan. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to go with it. All right.
Yeah.
What's my new structure? What's my new plan? Right?
Yes.
It's the yin and the yang, which I love.
Yes.
The Tao. We talk about it all the time.
Love the Tao.
With it. I mean, I'm sure your followers know, but you know, each of the circles within the yin and the yang, they represent creation within the other, right? So in the black is created by destruction of the white, right? It's a constant flow, like with the trees, for example. The yin is the growing of the tree. The yang is the dead needles that create life. The fungus is the yin that turns that death and destruction into you know, more life, more nutrients.
New life, yeah.
Right. And so if you look at your life in that way, if you look at your life, oh, this door closed, right? Oh, I just got fired from this job. Well, what can you do with that? Now you have all this free time. Oh, this relationship just ended. Well, it's probably not the relationship for you.
Well, what do you always say? Like, what was that? It was kind of a joke at the time, but you know something, you know, it's which animal was it by the way that it is?
Oh, I don't remember. I mean, I've said it about a lot of animals, but it's just quoting that video. It's like some YouTube
That's the video.
video.
Yeah. What was the quote?
You can tell it's a duck because of the way it is. Like, yeah. Or I don't remember what the animal.
But the thing is when you told me that quote, you can tell it's a duck because of the way it is. It's like you can, and then I was jokingly saying, you could tell it's a narcissist by the way that they are, you know, which is also true. But the point is that like, I say this to my clients all the time. It's like the relationship didn't work out. Well, and they're like, I don't know, but I thought they were the one. Do you think they're still the one? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like, because the relationship, do I think they're the one? Probably not. Why do I think that? Because the relationship didn't work out. If they were the one, it would have worked out. Or maybe it's just not the right time. You know what I mean? Right. In which case you can go and you can flow still. I just, I love that. Because when James was first telling me about him hiking the PCT, is when I really realized, and I told him this.
Please tell him what you told me.
Well, he's telling me, and I'm like, tell me more about this, because I didn't know what the PCT was at the time. I'm like, hold on now, you did what? You hiked for like probably 5-6 months or so.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah, like 6 months hiking, surviving. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, after a while, he's just talking so nonchalantly about this. After a while, you get tired of hearing the same thought cycle through your head. And so then I just started focusing on my breathing, and then I just focus on my breathing. And I'm like, I looked at him and I said, you're a spiritual savage. Because I realized in that moment how brilliant you were. And this is bringing me back to my brilliance comment. Because of you learning that, and you didn't learn it from reading a book. You didn't learn it from somebody telling you. You learned it from experience. And this is what has allowed you to get to a place of true embodiment of that harmony of your masculine feminine. It's like having enough structure to where there's safety and there's direction and vision in life, but enough flow. It's like knowing how much structure one would need. And this is an individual journey, guys. Like, there's not saying like, here's the right amount of structure in order to get the right amount of flow. It's like, it's up to you to decide how much structure you need in order to allow you to enter into a state of flow and creativity that's going to be not only productive, not just productive, but also peaceful and pleasurable for your life, right? Because we get to experience both. And what you've provided for me in this container of our relationship, because you're so harmonized, is so, we can paint a picture of masculine, feminine. I always like to make it super simple. And it's like a circle, right? An enclosed circle with empty space on the inside. And the enclosure itself, the boundary line of that circle, is the masculine. It creates a container. It literally creates a container. And inside is this flowy substance. That's the feminine. And too much restriction, that boundary, it kind of like constricts and restricts the flow of that feminine inside. But with fluidity and flexibility, but still structure and guidance and I don't want to say boundaries, but I don't know what the word
Structure.
Structure. Yeah, it is a structure. It could be flexible and fluid, but also still safe. It allows that feminine to flow in a way that, and we've talked about this, is like, what is leadership in who is leading, who is following in a relationship? Is it masculine or feminine? And I would say, like, in the standard definition of leading and following, there isn't one, because they're both doing it simultaneously. Like, the heart, being feminine in nature, is going to point the direction to say, like, here's the vision, like, this is the creation, it's the creativity, here's where we want to go, I'm painting this image. Then the masculine is going to come in and put actual order and steps and put that into action. And then they're both going to be flowing through there in order to get to the common shared mission. So it's like they're both leading, they're both following.
Sorry, I just had a moment. I was just absorbing. I feel like I'm watching your podcast. I don't feel like I'm part of it right now. I feel like I'm just like, get it, girl. You say it. Yep. No, absolutely. I think that's definitely something that we embody together. I had something that I was gonna say, and you just reminded me of it. Maybe I'll think of it as I talk, but this isn't like your 1960s, like, I'm the man of the house, like, I'm the leader here, like, you listen to me, woman, it's what the man wants, the man gets.
I can't even take you seriously when you're doing that.
I know, it's ridiculous. I always tell her, what the queen wants, the queen gets.
Say that.
And you guys need to start treating your women like they're the queen, because they are,
But okay.
But here's the thing, before, because I can see where you're going already. It's like, I have my own needs, right? It's not like I'm just like, whatever Sarah needs, I'm going to sacrifice my own needs over here for the woman. It's like, in order to provide and give that sort of, like, that rock for her to thrive on, I have to be secure in myself too. I have to know.
Say it.
Oh, I'm saying it, love.
Say it. Say it.
I have to be in a place that I can actually build upon what Sarah wants to create, right? I have to put myself in a position, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of the leads, in order to provide that safe place for Sarah. And she has to do the same for me, but we play different roles, right? Let's talk about for a second because I still want to get into the spirituality and the connection of the spirituality between us. And I want to talk about our healing session, because you're, as your viewers know, you're a healer. You do energy healing. So I want you to talk about your experience surrounding that, and just tell them a little bit what happened, because that was a
Oh,
very
man.
unique experience for you, I believe.
Yes, that was definitely the most unique healing session I've had. It's funny. It's like, as you were bringing that up, I almost felt the need to cry a little bit. And it's not like not like a sad cry or anything, but like just remembering that time and then being able to share it. So, when James and I first, okay. So first of all, I need to echo what you just said about you being safe and secure and mentally and emotionally and spiritually, physically, all of these things, which you do a brilliant job of. Like one of the things I wanted to note in there was that what happens in these relationships when men are like, you do this, that's just wounded masculine, which is really just wounded feminine. Like, it's all, and if you're a wounded feminine, you have a wounded, like, you can't be like, oh, masculine's real healthy, but my feminine's not. It's like they're both operate together. So if one's injured, they're both injured, and we need to heal both of those. And the reason a masculine is doing that is because he's injured. His feminine and masculinity is injured to the point where he feels as though he has to exert his dominance. I'm the man, I'm the this, I'm the that. Listen, babe, we know you're the man in this relationship without you ever having to say a word. Do you know what I mean? Like,
You just made me remember. That's what I wanted to say. You make me feel like the man.
because you are the
Guys,
man.
guys, find a woman that is going to make you feel like the man. And I'm not just talking about like the man in the house. I'm talking about, you make me feel like $1 billion man. And I've told you this. You have to find a woman who is going to encourage and support and just absolutely make you feel like 100% a man, because women, when you start doing that, that's how your man changes.
But let me piggyback on you really quick and say, oh my gosh,
Here we
babe,
go.
I was never able to be that in previous relationships. Do you want to know why?
Because you weren't with me.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, pretty much that, because they were never my person. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe enough to be able to take my eyes off of my own back and shift my focus onto the person and actually see. But the thing is I see you, right? Like, I feel, number one, I feel secure enough in myself where I don't have to be like, is someone going to hurt me? Because it's like, you can't sideline me anymore. Because if you do, it's your problem. It's your problem. It's not mine. Do you know what I mean? I'm not worried about getting hurt. I'm not worried about
Sarah.
Yes. Go ahead.
I know exactly what you mean. And Sarah, and I think where a lot of problems come from, right? It's not just men. It's not just women. Women will say, oh, guys are such jerks. Men will say, oh, women are just crazy.
Yes.
Both of you are coming at it from a broken masculine or broken feminine. Either one, it doesn't matter. It's like you said, it creates this like disjointed, like almost harmony of the chaos within each individual person. And everyone's chaotic harmony is just like flying at each other, and they're just like like everyone's just like like,
yes.
When you get yourself in order, watch what happens. Watch what happens with the people around you. Watch who you allow into your life. Because when you start doing that and you start creating that harmony in yourself, where you can say, all right, you know what? Like, I'm going to allow myself to be sad, right? I'm a man, and I'm going to allow myself to cry. I'm going to allow myself to be vulnerable. When you're a woman, you allow yourself to have that sort of, no, I'm going to stick to my goals here.
Yeah.
Right? Without saying, oh, screw the patriarchy. Every guy is disgusting pig.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem right now.
Yeah.
Is you have so many women, and this is where I get frustrated because women, well, I used to get frustrated. I don't have to get frustrated with that anymore because I found you. But I used to get very frustrated when I would be to court a woman
Mm-hmm.
and I would be just genuinely me, but there were not eyes to see me.
Yes. This is
It
exactly what I'm talking about.
It was always, oh, he's being really nice. He
What
just
does he
wants to
want?
get,
Yeah. What does he want?
what does
from
he
me?
want? Yeah. Whereas you see me and you're like, oh, you're so pure, right? Like you see me for me because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want you to hurt. I care about you very much.
Well, there's two things to that, babe. There's like, yes, I see you because, well, I'm supposed to see you. You're my person. You're the other half of my soul. So I'm supposed to see you. But number two is like, I've healed enough to where I'm like, you know what? I want to receive. I want to be feminine. I want somebody to open the door for me. I want somebody to rub my back or play with my hair and treat me like a queen. I want that. Like before I was wounded and I'd be like, no, like, oh, like people are like, I don't need that. The hyper independent woman, I don't need you to hold my door. I can get my own door. And it's like, I know I can get my own door, but I'd much rather have you open it for me.
And women who are listening, do you know what that does to a man when you do that? Because I will tell you from a man's perspective, because she gets it. Sarah gets it. She lets me do these things. It makes me feel like a man, right?
And ladies, let me tell you what happens when he feels like a man. This man steps up like every time, and I don't even like to say like I allow you to, but I do, because it's like I can get my own door and I can easily tell you like I got this. But I love and I make eye contact with him when he gets my door, because it's like that exchange, right? That look of my gratitude and my love, like you are getting my door for me. Like, oh, it's so great. It's a feeling that gets exchanged, right? And that unites us even more. But what I see it happen in him is he steps up to the plate more, right? It gives him confidence. It fuels his confidence in that manly role. And what that does is when I see you in that confidence, in that role, that allows me to step back even more and trust and feel safe and just be. Right now, I can just be in my feminine and be like, he's got that. Cool. I can sit back, because when your guy is doing it, huh?
And vice versa. If I'm driving and I need some water, Sarah will be so quick to say, "Oh, I'll get that for you. I'll unscrew the cap on your water bottle. I could do it myself." But why would I? Why would I take that away from her?
Yeah, exactly. Because, and here's what I'm getting at too, is people that are in relationships, right? If this isn't the natural dynamic, you're in the wrong relationship. And that sounds extreme. That I know, I get it. Sounds extreme. Relationships take work and this, that, and the other thing. Of course they do, but they take work. They don't take force. Okay. Let me be very clear on that. Relationships take work. They do not require force. If you have to force yourself to love somebody, it is not your person, or you've already gone too far down the damaging road and it may be unredeemable. Or you guys need to do some serious work. But I'm saying this right now, this flow, my desire to serve this man, like to say, I'm going to give you a massage tonight, or to say, I got your water, or to say, what can I help you with? Like that. It's like, I don't even think about it. I don't say like, how can I better love him today? Like it just flows. It emanates from my being, because you're doing the same back to me. We have each other's backs. Like we have a common mission to show each other love and to show up in those ways. I want you to feel manly. I want you to feel like you're uniquely special in my life. And because that's a desire of my heart first, not my mind, that naturally flows. And then it's just this ping pong back and forth where you're feeling more manly, you're stepping up. I'm like, that is, first of all, ladies, when you see your man, when he's not just trying to be manly because he wants to, because he's trying to earn your trust, or he's trying to woo you and court you and make you feel some type of way. But when it's just a natural, like stepping up into that confidence, that is the most attractive thing. You will be so sexually attracted to your partner. It's like the chemistry will go off the charts. Okay. So
And
it's like,
likewise for a woman.
yeah. And
It's
the
like
thing,
you do things so intuitively sometimes, like you step into your feminine role. I remember it was the last night that you were here in Oregon. You came out here for 4 days and we were together. And that night you were brushing your teeth. I'm going to say this because I'm not ashamed, but I was feeling a little bit anxious. I was like, oh man, she's leaving. I was kind of feeling antsy. I was laying in bed waiting for her to come to bed. And I was just like, I just couldn't sleep. And she looked over and my eyes were wide open, even though I was exhausted. And she just came over.
Exhausted.
She just came over and she put her hand right on my chest, right here. And instantly I was just like, you're nurturing me. And she just laughed just like that. And she didn't know why, but she knew that she had to come over. And when she got done, I was like, I was really feeling anxious. And when you came over, it just made me feel so at ease. And it's just like that's what she's talking about. That's what she's talking about with this intuitive flow of, it's so natural. It comes so natural to both of us, right? When we almost ran out of gas.
We have to tell that story. Well, we have to tell that story because it is such a beautiful example of how in a time of almost crisis, I mean, that could have been really bad for us,
Very
especially
bad.
with the temperatures that night. But the point is that I'm able to, and people ask me this all the time, and it's like, I never even thought to answer it this way. People are always like, how are you so in tune? What do you do to get to your level? How do you hear God and in all of these things? And it's like, the answer is presence, like extreme presence. The only reason I can do that, and the only reason James can do this too, is because at some level he's harmonized the masculine and feminine within. I'm not thinking about survival things. I'm not thinking about what if he says this, or what if he does this? What if he leaves me? What if he hurts me? I'm not thinking about all those things. I'm not thinking about the past relationships that may turn out to be the same in this situation. Like, my mind is free to be totally in tune with him, us, like where we are, what does the situation call for? I don't need to be thinking about work right now. I need to be thinking about my partner. I can sense that he's anxious and uneasy laying in bed. I don't know why, and it doesn't matter. I just know that he needs me. And so I don't have to do much. I just have to be, and me being caused me to go over to you and put my hand on your chest and just rub it. And I remember you saying that. He started laughing a little bit. He's like, you're nurturing me. I just started laughing. Like, I don't know. What am I doing? It's almost like, wait, how did I get over here?
She almost spit out her toothpaste on me.
I did. But let's talk about this. Okay. So this is like a great example, you guys, in real life situations of how the masculine and feminine flows. So we're camping. I went out to Oregon to visit him for 4 days, most magical 4 days of my entire life. And we'd been kind of driving around doing these different scenic spots. We went to the waterfall. You can see pictures of that beautiful, magical place and what James captured there. Anywho's, then that night we decided to go to the hot springs, and it was then that he noticed, like, man, my gas is being eaten up faster than normal. Like, this isn't normal, right? We are running out of gas more quickly than you're used to. So normally you would have had enough gas to do all of this. We went to the hot springs and we were going to go back to the campsite. Well, on the way back to the campsite, we realized, or he realized, this isn't good. Like, if we go to the campsite now, we can go out and get gas in the morning, but we might not make it. And we're in an area with no service. Or we can look for something right now, get gas, and then go back to the campsite if it's a shorter distance. Am I telling the story right, babe?
Yeah, pretty much. So we were out of service. I was like, hey, I need you to look up for gas stations, see what's open right now.
Because it was late. Yeah, it was
somehow,
late.
somehow she had gotten like one little bar of service, was able to say, oh, there's a gas station in Chemult, which I knew where it was. I knew how to get there from where we were. It was a pretty straight shot. And I knew that as soon as we got to Highway 97, we would just have to go up maybe like 10, 15 miles and we would be at that gas station. And so I said, okay, well, at least if we run out of gas, we'll be in a place that we have service.
Mind you, he did not say that out loud. That was all internal. All I saw from my perspective was this man's posture change. His eyes are darting from the dashboard to look at the gas gauge and the mileage to the road, back and forth, back and forth. So I see what's going on. Like, oh, we're in a situation right now. We are in a situation because like we could break down on the side of the road with service and be in a very sketchy spot because it was very cold at the time in Oregon.
We're in the mountains. It
was
a freak rainstorm. I mean, it was at that time, I think it was around, it was definitely below freezing. I want to say it was around 30 degrees, but
yeah,
it was around that. And
or
the gaslight came on, and I think it was about 30 miles to the gas station from when you pulled that up. And so I said to her, I said, we're going to get gas tonight.
I felt the decision, and here's what happened in me. I felt so first of all, there was a long moment of silence as this calculation in his mind was happening. And I just sat back. And I'm like, okay, like he needs his space to make a call, to make an executive decision. That's what the masculine does, right? They make those executive decisions in times of stress. And so I'm sitting back and he's like, we're going to get gas. And I'm like, we're going to get gas. Like, we're going to take
You did say
risk.
that too. You said that out loud. All right. You said, let's go, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the good thing, here's where I want to, really toot your horn a little bit, is that healed feminine role, right? You know how many women might have been like, oh, I knew you should have gotten gas earlier. Why didn't you get gas earlier? There was no nagging. There was no, and I'm not saying that all women do this. Men do this too, right? You get on each other's nerves. Oh, why didn't you do that? Like, don't do that, people. Don't do that. It's already bad enough. You're in a stressful situation.
It's going to make the stressful situation worse.
It's just going to make it worse, right? If you can come at things from a place of, well, we can't change the past, right? If you can come at it from that, and that is what Sarah's talking about, that place of presence.
Yeah, it's like in that moment, if you're present enough, you can drop into a productive state of feminine or masculine. And in that moment, I was able to do that. I was able to be productive for you and for us, because I felt his stress, and I immediately just went inside, and I was like, as a healer, and we'll talk about the healing session in a moment. As a healer, I'm accessing energy. I'm accessing God. I'm accessing these forces, these angelics and assistants, and ironically enough, he goes, can I ask you a favor? I'm like, yes. Can you just send some comforting energy to me right now? I'm like, I'm already on top of it.
Which I knew you were. I just wanted to vocalize that I really needed it.
Yeah. And this is a great point, you guys, like, because I've been with men in the past, and I know women are out there and men are out there that when a man needs something, they feel like they can't ask, because like if you were an unhealed masculine, you just be like, I got this, it's all under control, like putting on this whole show. And I'm gonna say this right now, if you'd have done that, I'd have felt extremely unsafe. I'd have been like, do we got this? Like, I don't know, because that feels like a little like you're just lying right now. You know what I mean? You're being fake, and you can't trust fake. You're putting on this facade for me in order for me to feel safe. And what it's doing is it's making me not feel safe. So here I hear you are in a time of need for comfort. And I'm like, this is where I come in. This is where my feminine comes in. This is where my nurturing comes in. And I say, let me just tap in really quick. And I'm closing my eyes. I tap in, I'm talking to God, and I get a clear message. We're going to make it. We're going to be fine. So I looked at him and I said, we're going to make it. We can have fun again. Like, it's all good.
And we went back to it. We were, I was still sort of conserving the gas, was still being mindful, paying attention, but we were singing, we were dancing, like having the music going in the car. We weren't too worried. And when we got to the gas station, I filled up. I have a 15-gallon tank. I filled up 14.73 gallons. So I had a quarter of a gallon left. I had like 5 miles left.
We literally had 5 miles left until we would have ran out of gas. So number one, he made the right decision. Like, obviously, we wouldn't have made
miles, 20 miles about off of the road to get to our campsite. So it's 10 miles to our campsite, 10 miles back to the road. So we wouldn't have made it.
We wouldn't have made it. And we did make it to the gas station.
Just a perfect demonstration of you keeping it cool, right? Me keeping it cool. Both of us being in a state of, oh, okay, we're fine, right?
My point is with all of this is that, yes, like, I appreciate you tooting my horn, and all of that's appreciated, right? And I love you very much for that. But you make it very easy for me because of the way that you are. Provides enough trust and safety in me to be able to step into that role fully. And I want to, and then we'll talk about the healing. I promise. Oh, but I want to say the qualities. So this is for men and women. The qualities that I see and feel in you that make you safe are as follows. Number one, you're extremely in tune with your feminine, meaning you're aware of and you acknowledge and you allow yourself to feel emotions, and you don't just feel them, you explore them. You explore what they mean, you explore where they're coming from, and then you work through them, right? I see him, guys and girls, individually doing this work on and in himself. Number one, because of the things he tells me that he's done in the past, like going to therapy and these types of things, and even seeking psilocybin as a healing modality. So I'm like, okay, there's past proof that he does this, right? And then I'm seeing him do it live in the relationship where he'll go into his emotions and he'll even tell his emotions to me. And oh my gosh, go figure, what a concept. He feels his emotions with me. Like, I get to be a part of that experience. Like, he's cried. I think you've cried like 5 times already in our relationship. Probably more than that. Probably more. But see, it's not all like, I'm crying because I'm sad type of tears. It's like he feels his feels. He'll get into it. He'll cry because he's in love, or he'll laugh because he's in love, or he'll cry because there's something that's just breaking his heart about people. And it's like, because I can see him feel that, makes me feel so safe. Why, you might ask? Why would a woman feel safe when her man can feel his feelings? Because if you are not afraid of your feelings, you won't be afraid of mine. And that way I can tell you, like, I know.
Ooh, that one.
Good.
Ooh, that one hit deep.
So because of the fact that you walk so courageously into yours is the reason why when I brought that situation to you that hurt my feelings, you were able to handle it. Like I said, like a mountain. Like if you're wounded and you're not willing to address your own feelings, when I come to you with my fiery, forceful emotions, even as loving as I could be, right? You could be afraid of that. No, you didn't feel that way. I didn't mean it like that. Try to get me out of the feeling as quickly as possible because you don't know what to do with it. You know what I mean? And this is why women can't feel safe, is because men aren't willing to to be with their own feminine, meaning embrace emotions, which means if a woman, whether she realizes it or not, consciously or subconsciously, when she sees a man who cannot feel what he's feeling, how can he be with her and her feelings? He can't.
I never thought about it that way, but I mean, that is very true.
And that's the point. That's the point, is that you never thought about it that way. So none of this is being fabricated or created. It's just who you are. And because of, so the thing is like, because, but here's the thing though. And this is like the path that I took too, right? I wasn't like, what do I need to show people in order to get my relationship? You were like focusing on you. You were focusing on you getting yourself right for the mere sake of getting yourself right. Oh my
Selfishly
gosh.
selfless. Yeah, many years of therapy. I've been
And
through
because,
so many years of talk therapy, especially after I got out of the military, went through my own divorce, very, very brief marriage, that ended with a lot of like, okay, this was like a recreation of my father and my mother, right? My name is James. My mom's name is Anna. My name is, or my father's name is James. Like we got that connection. My ex-wife's name was Anna. Like I literally married my mom, you know what I mean? And I entered into this like, it was just, the way it played out was so much of like, I think back to my childhood and I'm like, wow, okay. And it's just going through that kind of made me realize, oh, okay, this is where this comes from. All right, how do I heal that? You know? And as I got older, I just began to see less and less of those qualities in not only myself, but in the people around me. And so many people are so quick to, you know, if they haven't had, I mean, I think to a certain extent, right? I love my dad. I love my mom, right? But there are things that they do that are unbeknownst to them, to no fault, right? That creates a like little impact on your children. And every parent does it, right? It could be something very simple that is something so innocent on behalf of the parent, and they have no idea that it's hurting the child. And that is fine. Like parents, don't beat yourself up. You're going to cause trauma on your kids. It's just inevitable almost because we're not perfect. We are literally not perfect. God says so. So the only way for people to overcome those traumas, those imperfections, is to work on themselves and realize, oh, okay, I am still lovable despite the fact that I didn't get this or this happened when I was a kid. This negative self-belief that was imprinted because of some weird, you know, Eric Erickson's 8 stages of psychology or whatever, 8 stages of development, right? If you look into that, it's like, whoa, because I didn't get like, you know, I don't know, it could be anything. Because I didn't get picked up enough. It's something so simple.
Well, no, you're right. It's like something so minute can happen as a young child. And in that moment, a belief is set into the subconscious mind that we never take the opportunity to revisit and say, huh, like that's actually not true. I've just been holding on to that for all this time. It could be so minor and it could be major too, but
Or even dissect it and ask, where does this come from?
right.
Where does this come from? And why do I feel this way? Why, when someone tells me that they love me,
I can't believe them.
I can't believe them. I can't accept it. Or I'm afraid of affection. I'm afraid of people loving me. Right? I know people who are very much like that. They are so afraid of being loved,
Yes.
allowing people in. I mean, there's some people, I go up and give them a big old hug and they're like, whoa, like I'm a physical guy, right? Not just in my romantic relationship, but I love like giving people a hug. I just love feeling like I'm like a part of a community where it's just like, come here, man, give me a hug,
Totally. Yeah.
like you're my brother, give me a hug, right?
Yes.
And it's like people, and that's fine. Not everyone likes to be touched, and I'll be respectful of that. But there are some people that are literally like, whoa, like you're getting really close to me now. Like I'm afraid to be like, I care about you, right? It's like, well, yeah, you're a human being, of course. And, we've been through some stuff. Like, of course I love you, Like I love you as a human being.
And even though they want it, they're scared of it.
Yeah.
And this is going to always come back to the healing of the masculine feminine within, because when we actually do dissect that, when we turn towards it, get curious and try to understand that, then it's going to come back to a wound that happened from mom or dad at some point.
Mm.
Whether it was whether it was like their fault or not, it doesn't even matter at that point. It's like the time for pointing fingers and saying it's because of you is already past. It's like, well, now it's just your responsibility.
Yeah.
What good is it sitting here saying like, mom, you did this to me, or dad, you did this to me? It's like, it's there. Now it's your responsibility to address it and heal it.
And I made the mistake of, as I was trying to go through the healing journey of it all, to try to point the finger and try to get answers. And it's like, that's not the way either. It's like, oh, once you have an understanding, it's not their responsibility to fix it. It's your own responsibility, responsibility of forgiveness, right? Because half the time when someone hurts you, it doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 6 or you're 26, it's like the person that hurt you probably doesn't know that they hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
If it's something minute, if it's something that's seemingly like, oh, it's like, all right, they did what they did. I have to come to terms with that. I have to find a way to heal through that. You can't put it back on them and say, you did this to me, I need forgiveness for this. Just forgive them. Write it on a piece
you don't
of paper,
need their participation.
Set it on fire. Send it. No, you don't.
Yeah.
And the sooner that people can come to terms and say, oh, like, where is this deep trauma coming from me? Like, where is it coming from for me? Right? Oh, it's coming from this interaction that I had, or this person, or even as something as simple as, what's my biggest stressor in my life right now? What's really going on in my life? Oh, I'm really just bummed because someone said something to me, right? Oh, well, it's much easier said than done, right? Especially when you're in that state of emotion, to say, oh, I forgive this person. It's not a reflection of me, it's a reflection of them.
Yes.
Right.
And
you've helped me through that.
Me?
Of course. Yeah. There was one moment in particular where I had heard some things that was said about me, and it really
Mm.
hurt my feelings.
I
And
remember.
I just said, Sarah, I really need to talk right now. And I think you were with some friends or something, and you're like, okay, well, I'm almost finished. And I was like, okay, take your time. Like, when you talk to me, you help me talk through it. And I just said, like, I think that was one of the moments that I was crying, actually.
Yeah.
And you helped me talk through it, and you said, it's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. They're going through their own karmic healing. And just
Mhm.
that little like realization where you were able to talk me through it, give me that nurturing as a feminine, and not like from a place of like, be a man, grow a pair. You were like,
Yeah.
well, I understand that you're hurting. And that's something that I look for. It's definitely reassuring, and it allows me to feel safe with you too, right? You feel safe with me. I feel safe with you. I can be vulnerable. I can
Yes.
be, I can allow myself to experience emotions in a healthy and productive way where I don't feel wound up tight. I don't feel like,
Yes.
oh, wow, I have to like hide my true emotions. And then, they all come out in this like damaged, broken masculine
Yes.
energy that ends up with like, God, like I found myself in relationships where that is the case.
Yep.
I'm not
And
gonna, I'm not gonna beat around the I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm not going to hide that. Yeah,
yes,
I've been
because
angry in past
oh
relationships
my gosh.
because I don't get the chance to be who I am and express my sensitivity and express my emotions in a way that feels like I'm supported, I'm loved, I'm nurtured, I'm cared for. These are the things that people don't get. It's like, women,
And
let your man be. I'm going to let you talk, but I
and
just want to
yeah, go,
go
go,
ahead.
go, go.
I'm just I really feel like it's necessary to harp on, because I don't think women realize how much it means to a man to be allowed to be vulnerable and be sensitive, because
Oh my gosh.
it's a little release valve, right? It's a little release valve. And if I don't get that, if you're
Mm.
telling me, oh, you need to be a man, not a little boy or whatever, like don't emasculate me like that. I am a man, but I'm a man that
Feels.
has emotions too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah.
This is such a, oh my gosh. Women with the wounded masculine inside of themselves don't feel safe with their own emotions too. And therefore, when their man is coming to them with a high level of emotion, they feel unsafe because it's like, oh, fuck, he's feeling things like, shut it down. Because if he's feeling things, that means he's not going to be able to provide, or who knows what thoughts go in their mind. Like, if he's getting tired at work, does that mean he's going to quit his job? Like, this whole thing just starts to happen within the mind, and then they don't
Mm.
feel safe and they can't meet their partner where they're at. And just like, it's like, we're all human. Like, just because you have a feeling doesn't mean you're going to do something outrageous that makes me unsafe. Do you know what I mean? In fact, it's the
Mm.
opposite. If you don't feel safe to express that, this is where my masculine stepped up in those moments, because we'll talk about that too. Like, it's not equal. There's no such thing as like a balance of like, oh, I have 50% masculine, 50% feminine, and everything's
Mm.
equal. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as equal. You have different portions of masculine in you and feminine in you, and I have different. It's just that they're harmonized. That's the difference, not balance, harmony. But my masculine showed up to be an anchor for you in your emotional time, because that was you being in a feminine state of uncertainty or chaos. Like, we could call it that because it was anything other than peace, right? We could call it chaos because it wasn't peace. And because you were in that state, that was me being an anchor for you, a mountain for you to say, yeah, what's up? Feel it. Let's talk it through. Like, babe, this isn't about you. This is about them. This is a projection, you know, and offering that hope and that other outlook as your rock, as you've been for me so many times. It's like acknowledging men and women knowing when to step into each role. Like James can step into a feminine role and allow me to take a masculine role, because I am more like routine and structure and like, let's get up at this time and blah, 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 like these things, you know what I mean? And he will take the more feminine role in that and let me do that. It's so that we could get us on track. And then I step back and let him do like build a fire and like do survival stuff and provide and do all these things. So it's just being aware, knowing when to step into what you're uniquely good at. And that's why, you know, we've talked about this. You've acknowledged that in some areas I'm more masculine than you are, and vice versa. In other areas, I am way more feminine. You just hold that masculine role. So this comes back to like who's leading and who's following. Both and.
Yes.
Both and, because we're a team. Like we have to operate as a unit. If James is cooking food and I'm like, no, this is my job. Or like, I don't know, like, why am I setting the structure? You should be setting the structure. It's like, that's
or
not
if
him.
I'm cooking the food and I'm like, why is she not cooking the food?
Yes.
She's the woman in the relationship. How ridiculous is that?
Right. It's like, no,
ridiculous.
just let the person be the person and you will find your person and be able to harmonize that way.
Look, when I cook amazing meals. I use lots of different sauces and flavors, and I love creating a meal. She does not use sauce, which is something that I'm just going to throw it out there.
So we'll just put it out there.
When she cooks, she makes like bland chicken with like rice, which, hey, I'm not dogging on you. You have your jam, but there is a certain level. Did I lose you? I think I lost you.
Well, we froze for a second. You were saying when she cooks.
When she cooks, she makes chicken with like bland rice and like broccoli with nothing on it. And she just like might throw a little salt and pepper. I'm like, whoa. Where's the garlic aioli? Where's the olives? Where's the lemon zest? You know, like we got to spruce it up. So that's something
James, you guys like
in the kitchen. I don't let her in the kitchen at all. Like, I mean, she does. She comes into the kitchen, but it's kind of like I'm the director, you know. And
I'm like, what do you need? What can I help you with? I totally like. I acknowledge the fact that that's not my thing. Like, and he's like, I love to cook. So he cooks like 99.9% of our meals, and I may chop some mushrooms, but even that I get distracted in. But I'm getting distracted by him. So anyways, all right, we won't go into that. The point is that like, you know, we know our strengths, we know our weaknesses. I know where I'm more masculine in an area and more feminine in an area. He knows the same. And there's no ego involved. It's not like he has an ego trip if I'm taking more masculine role, and I don't have an ego trip if he's taking a more masculine role in some area. It's like, yep, take the lead. This isn't my thing. I follow right now. Yeah, I think you take the lead. Like, yeah.
I think what is missing from society right now is that we both recognize the equal value in each other, but while also realizing that we are not equal, right? Man and woman, right? That's a big, and I want you to say this because I feel like everyone who's going to hear me say this, because this is what you said, and I want you to say it and know what I'm going to say. Because I feel like when women hear me say this, they're instantly going to shut off and they're going to be like, oh, what a pig.
The feminist. Yes, the feminist. But
Right.
it's true. There is no such thing. And I actually had this. So just so y'all know, like I made notes for this podcast. We're kind of not following them at all, but that's totally fine. But we're kind of addressing all of the topics. But I even wrote down that there is no such thing as equality. I don't believe in equality as far as quote unquote, oh, this word just really bothers me, and I'm not sure why. Rights, equal rights. Like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean equal rights? Like, we all have a right to all the same things. That doesn't mean I'm good at them. Just because I have an equal right to chop down a tree doesn't mean I'm better than you at chopping down the tree. So please, by all means, chop down the freaking tree so we can have some firewood. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I have a right to that.
Yeah.
Sure. Fine. That's great. I can know that inside I have a right.
But you don't have
to
a
this.
drive for it.
No. And it's not my role. So it's like, so I love what you said, equal value. Like we have equal value as far as our value in the relationship as an individual person and in society, but we don't have equal skill sets or talents. Like we can't even use the word equal there because it's just different. It's just different. You're better at different things than I am. And if I'm obsessed with the word equality, I'll be like, I want to be good at that too. But I don't want to be good at that. I
Right.
want you to supplement. Like if I were good at all the same things that you, why would I need you?
Here's my question for all the feminists out there. If you're listening, if you haven't turned off the podcast, if you love equality so much, why don't you go be a plumber? Why don't you go clean out sewage? You won't. Most women won't. And I'm just saying this. I'm not saying that to put all women in a basket, but a dude is going to be way more willing. And this is the fundamental difference between men and women, because we are different. Right? We are wired differently. We have different things about
Needs.
us
Yep.
biologically that are just different.
Yes.
Men and women are different. We are not equal, because if you're equal, then 1 equals 1, right? I'm an A, you're a 1. We have the same value, but in different ways, right?
Oh my God, I love that.
If I'm the first letter of the alphabet, she's the first number in a sequence, right? But that doesn't mean that we do the same things, right? I create words. He creates math problems. Well, I guess it'd be the other way around if we're looking at it from a masculine feminine role, because I feel like letters are more associated with creativity.
Yes.
And
yes.
yeah, numbers are more masculine. So guys,
Absolutely.
think of yourself as number 1 and her as A, right? You creating structure, you're creating the sort of mathematical formula. She's creating the poetry, right? That's what you do. You do. So
That
I
is
think
I've never heard that metaphor or that relationship between them. And I love that so much. I was trying to like bookmark this because I need that.
Yeah, and I've never really, that just kind of like whew, came out. But I think it's true. Or it came in, yeah. Boop, you know?
And out.
Yeah. So I think if more people think of relationships and people in general that way, right?
Yeah.
And you start to recognize the people in your life that are more structured, they are more creative, and how your roles interact in between those two. I mean, I think we just have a much better, maybe not better, but a healthier society.
100% agree. And that's the whole point of balancing the masculine and feminine within, because then we can do that in our relationships too. And that's not to say like, you know, for instance, there are many people now that I'm balanced enough to say, yeah, like, I love you and you're a great person. It's just like, I don't have a reason for you to be in my life. That's not to say that you're like bad or I don't like what you do or who you are or anything. It's just that like, I carry that role already for myself. I don't need you to step in and be that role. And that's what I desire in a partnership too. I don't want, like, you and I are like two sides to the same coin. We are so similar. But if we were too similar, I like, why would I want to marry myself? You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm with
Yep.
myself all the time, but I want to marry someone who's similar enough in terms of values and desires and like what drives you and your mission, but different enough in the ways that you complement everything that I am. And I believe that I do the same for you. And that's what the masculine feminine is. And what we've just been able to do in harmonizing this relationship is knowing our own individual masculine feminine enough to where we're safe and secure and confident in that. So then I can bring that person to you, that completed version of myself in harmony, and say, wow, instead of seeing, oh my gosh,
Here we go. We go.
Instead of seeing you and thinking to myself, what can this person be for me? I just see you. I don't think to myself, that part, that's not for me, or that part can benefit me. I'm not looking at you from a version of myself that says, how can you benefit me, or heal my wounds, or tell me the right things to make me feel some type of way. I already got that covered. And I'm just able to see you for who you are and love you for that.
And that puts you in a state of presence.
And love.
In a
What you
state
said
of
in the
presence and love.
literally what you said in the very beginning of this episode was being in love. Because I'm in love, I'm able to enter into love with you. And women out there, please, and men too, please take your time to do this, so then you can be that for your partner, instead of thinking, my partner won't let me speak. It's like, you need to take a step back. Then you can speak. And if you're with the wrong person, then that's okay too. But this type of dynamic will be easy when you're that person, because then you'll attract that type of person. And it's instead of trying to mold the relationship to be that, you enter into a relationship that pretty much already is that, because you're that individual. Does that make sense? Was that really wordy?
No, I think it's great. And women or men, if you find yourself in that relationship pattern where you feel like you can't speak, you feel like you can't be who you are, send your significant other this episode, share this episode, rate it on Spotify, do all the things, because this is my baby, this is my love, and this is her project, this is her her brainchild, and I want everyone out there to listen to her words. And I think not only this episode but other episodes, if you're listening to this woman, I think she's brilliant, and I think more people need to hear her word and create a better society, because she is so passionate about this world, about humanity, about people. And no, Sarah, that was not too wordy. That was perfectly described. You perfectly elucidated exactly what people needed to hear, I think.
Damn it, you're making me cry.
Oh, are you getting leaky?
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
This is what I mean, you guys. It's like, I believe, James believes too, we've talked about this many times, but this is possible for everyone. It just requires you to go inside first and to do your own self-healing journey. So then we can consciously choose, like, my heart wasn't aching for James at the time that we met. And that's the only reason that my eyes could see him.
Mm, yeah, we kind of skipped the whole like how we came to.
So should we tell them about the healing session now?
Yes, we
This
should.
is
I
going to be a
think.
great way to kind of like wrap up what we just talked about. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. So we meet through this mutual friend, Kiara. We go on this hike. We're talking, we're vibing. It's like everything that I'm saying, he's like, yeah, resonating with everything he's saying. I'm like, yo, you get it. We are on the same wavelength, which just demonstrates, going back to, again, making sure that you're in, that you share values, right? You share values and beliefs. That's the number one thing. You can't have a relationship without that. So he whips out his camera, this humongous camera on this hike. And I'm like, whoa. He's also a photographer, brilliant photographer. You'll know this by now if you follow my page at all. And then also we're going to plug that at the end. So we whips out this camera, he's taking pictures and everything. And he's like, hey, Sarah, Kiara told me that you're a healer. Would you be open to doing a trade? We can do a photography session for a healing session. And I'm like, definitely. Sure. Why not? No idea why I'm just so like eager and ready to just say yes. So I say yes, I'm like, for sure. So he hikes the Grand Canyon. We planned this little photo shoot. We planned this little picnic and this photo shoot. And the photo shoot was really where we began to see each other. There were specific moments within that experience with James where I was like, who is this person? Like, where'd you
And the
come
funny
from?
thing is, I actually captured the exact moment that she saw me, because I sometimes, depending on the lighting and depending on the subject that I'm shooting, I'll open both eyes, which is actually a trick that I learned from my dad. And
Really?
yeah, he taught me that. And he, well, you had said when I saw you do that, because you'd taken photo shoots before. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
And here's the photo. We'll put this. Just if you're listening to this, I encourage you to head over to the YouTube channel, because I'm showing the picture where this moment happened when I looked at James and I saw him looking. Both of his eyes were open. One was in the lens and one was on me. And now also, if you've met James in person, you know that he has two different colored eyes. What do they call that?
Heterochromia.
Heterochromia, which is very rare. So he has two different colored eyes. So I'm looking at him and I caught his gaze of his one eye, and something happened. There was like this 5D, like our souls were communicating. And I was like, holy crap, who is this? And so he captured this photo right here. And that was like when, for me, I was like, okay, this is something huge, because that is not something that typically happens to me in that way. Like, I've had soul connections and knowing that there was like past life experiences with people, but that was like our souls just danced in heaven. And it was a reunion. It felt like a huge reunion.
And it's funny because I even told you that night, of course, I was feeling it, when Sarah left that night, she kind of like blew me a kiss, and I was like, whoa, what's this? Like, it felt like someone just like slapped my heart like a little bit, not in a bad way, but just like, hey, wake up, dude, and I was like, whoa. And so I immediately went to go camp, and I pulled out my computer and I edited like all the photos, like pretty much like boom, 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 got them out. And in the morning I sent them to her, and afterwards I told her, I was like, there's one particular photo where I felt like you were talking to me. And she was like, which photo was it? And I was like, it's the one where you're in the trees. And she kind of told me like, that's when I saw you. And I was like, get out
Yeah.
of here. And I sent her the photo, and she's like, yep, that's the one.
Yep.
And it was just kind of like this. I've never had that. Like, I've always edited, and every time I edit portraits like of people, because normally I do kind of like nature, landscape photography, sometimes night photography. And whenever I edit photos of people, it always feels different. There's always like a little bit different energy with whoever I'm editing pictures of. And with Sarah, it felt like, I don't know how to describe it. It was just a completely unique, and it was the first time that I ever felt like, oh, this person's talking to me, right? This person's like communicating with me through her gaze in my photos. It was the most wild experience I've ever had.
Yeah, you even said it felt like you were there with me again.
Pointing, yeah, that's right. It felt like you were moving my hand, and I was able to more accurately and more definitively edit. Like it felt like my editing level for my photography just stepped up just right then. It was like, oh, bring out these colors, you know?
Yeah.
Because I was like doing all these new things that I hadn't really done. I was like, oh, okay, there's that.
So we had that experience, and I couldn't get my mind off of it. And I was like, but I also wasn't forcing anything. I was just flowing with things. So the next day, or the 2 days after, was the time for him to come to me for his healing session. And so the whole time in preparation for this, we'd been texting like this whole time, just communicating. The whole time in preparation for this, I was just like, don't like still save some space, like still save some space between the two of you so that there's not too much emotion going on, because how do you heal from a place of like really high emotions? It's very hard. Like you've got to be neutral. And what I do is you've got to have neutrality so you can welcome in spirit and just be totally unbiased. Well, so I go on this walk and I'm like praying. I'm like, okay, just neutrality, even though I'm feeling all these heightened emotions. And I could feel when he got there and I came out, I was like, hi. And so anyways, to make what could be a long story short, so he gets on the table, and immediately I'm like kind of smiling and giggling to myself, because I felt like, babe, I felt your energetic body was like bzz, like buzzing so high, and it was like more so your emotional body, right? I felt it, and I was like, all right, cool. You can feel it, you can acknowledge that it's there, you don't have to like let it rock you. So I was like, just separate it. And I remember you said the first time I even touched you during the healing session was like,
touch me right here, the back right side of my head.
Yeah. And
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so just kind of moving along, and I felt him wherever he was totally just tethered to me, like 100% of his being was there with me, and it was like wherever I went, he was sensing into all of it. And so there was a moment that we shared when I was like, I put my hand over his heart space, and I was like, okay, I need you to bring your hand up. And it was like hovering over his heart, and my hand went underneath his hand, but they weren't touching. Right, exactly, like this. So there was like, we were palm to palm, but not touching at all. And I started feeling this intense, like pulsating feeling back and forth between our palms. And I don't know what you felt, but that's what my sensation was.
Felt like a rod, like someone had put
literally
a stick in my hand. Felt like someone had like a stick in my palm, and it was just like tied to something. And my eyes were closed. I didn't know that your hand was below mine. All I could feel was this. I had no idea that your hand was right there. And I was like, you asked me, you said, do you feel that?
Do you feel that?
And I opened my eyes and I looked down at your hand up below my hand, and I looked at you and I said,
yeah.
Yeah. And we both just started into stitches. Like we were
laughing
hard. And I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this. You said, okay, That's never, or what you said
I said, I
something.
gotta pull it together.
And I said, well, maybe that was just part of it, right?
Yes.
I said, maybe that was just part of it, right? And you were like, yeah, I guess so.
Mm-hmm.
Because you were like, I got to get back into this. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, well, maybe that was part of this,
Yeah. Yes.
you know?
Yes. It was such a
And
strong sensation where I was like, whoa, yo, do you feel that? Like, just want to make sure I'm not crazy here. Like, do you feel that? And he said, yeah. And we just were cracking up. And then I'm like, okay, just wanted to make sure I got to get back into this. Like, we got some work to do still.
so when I closed my eyes again, when she got back into it, when I closed my eyes, it felt like my hand was wanting to pull down. And I remember at the very beginning of the session, Sarah told me, I'm going to put your body in different positions, just keep them there. And so I was being, I was trying to do my best and just, obedient. I was trying to keep it there. And she said something to me that I'll never forget. She said, just let your hand go wherever it wants to. And I remember thinking right there, I was like, okay, this girl is the real deal. She knows what she's doing, because how else would she know that my hand was wanting to pull hers? It was like she knew, and she could feel me. And she even said, I felt like it got to a point where your hand wanted to lead mine and tell me where it wanted it to go. And so it moved down my body, and then it moved over, can't really see, down my body, over my heart, down and to the right side of my body where it kind of stopped. And then Sarah pushed my hand down into my ribs.
I had felt that your hand
I'll
had
let you take it
reached.
from there.
Yeah, I had felt that your hand had reached the spot it wanted to go to. And so it's like I kind of tapped his fingertips, and then I just pressed his hand into his own body, into his right rib cage. And I don't really remember what happened after that. I just remember that I carried on with the healing session and we did our thing. And then I just felt you. I felt so tethered to you. And so we came out of it and we were going over the whole session and kind of like avoiding the obvious topic of the hand thing. But I was just recapping, like, yes, this was this, and calling out all these things. And you're like, yes, exactly. And this recognition was happening that I actually saw you and you felt seen. And then I asked you about the hand thing, like, what was that? You're like, yeah, what was that? And I was like, well, you tell me what you experienced. And you said, I just felt so connected to you specifically. And you said, just to preface this, in the beginning of the session, I always tap into my clients, it's not that you're a client, babe. I always tap into whoever I'm facilitating healing with, just to see what's going on. And I had tapped in and I said, so you're thinking about setting down roots, like new roots. And you're like, yeah, that's pretty much exactly where I am right now. I'm just trying to figure out like what home looks like what's home, And so at the end, we're recapping and he goes, felt like I had found, and it's like, I knew where you were going. So I just completed your sentence for you. And I said, home. And you're like, yeah, home. And there was just this moment of like this long gaze, like we just are staring at each other. I think what I was thinking in my head, like, who are you? And also I was also thinking, does he know? Like, like, when is he going to figure this out? Because I knew who you were, and I knew we were who we are. And so then we just embraced in this really long hug. And it's like that same feeling that was happening in our palms was happening between our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, it was like, both of us are like, we have got to figure out what this is. So he actually stayed longer in Arizona. We went on a sunset hike where we
So
Really?
we're going up this hike, and the entire time, all right, this is where I'm just like, okay, because I don't want to be, you know, I think where I've gotten, especially in the state of our society as a whole, and this is to kind of bring it back to the macro level of, I
I'm
feel
going to
as
share some of your
though,
photography while you're talking.
okay, I feel as though it's almost rude to kind of pursue a woman and tell her like, oh yeah, I really adore you, or I really appreciate you. Like, it comes from a place of, like, for women to hear that, it's almost like alarm bells for them, like we sort of talked about. And so the entire time we're hiking up this mountain, Bear Mountain out of Sedona, the entire time we're hiking, I was thinking to myself, be cool. Don't be, like, you can be flirty, but don't make any moves. Like, take it nice and slow. Like, just, be respectful. And that was like the constant, like, if it happens, if you kiss the girl, you kiss the girl, if not, like, don't force it, don't be pushy. And, I think you had told me after the fact, but as we were hiking up, there were a couple moments where we locked eyes, and Sarah told me, she's like, I thought you were going to kiss me right there. And I was like,
Yeah.
nope, like, that wasn't the right moment. And
yeah, he was so patient. Mind you, the whole that day when we knew we were going on the sunset hike, I was like, he's going to kiss me tonight. I just didn't know when, but you were very patient. This was a long hike up the mountain. Okay, go ahead, continue, babe.
Yeah, so it was about 1.5 miles, 2,000 feet of elevation gain up. So the entire time we're hiking, she's stopping on the side, and she's like, oh, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, just wait, it's gonna get better. Because I've done this hike before. She hasn't, but I'd never done it at sunset. So I wanted to do the sunset hike with her. And we get up there, and we're watching the sunset, and she is just like, I can't even watch the sunset because I'm just looking at her. And I was just blown away. I was like, here's this, like, I've seen the sunset 1,000 times, here's this woman that I've never seen, and not just in a physical sense, but every sense. And I just couldn't stop looking at her. And she's sitting next to me, and the wind's blowing, and she's cold, and she's got my dirty, beat up jacket on her. And I just like, oh man, she must smell my stink. And I was like, that thing that we did with our hands? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, I wonder if we could do it with like other parts of our bodies too. And she's like, what do you mean, like eye gazing? And I was like, yeah,
I want to eye gaze with you.
I was like, that's exactly what I was thinking of. And so we go, I was like, she's like, can we do it off the mountain? And I was like, no, we're going to do it here. We're going to do it here. And so I take her behind some bushes where we're out of the wind. And she's like, oh yeah, this is a little more warm. And I was like, oh, just, come on in. Like, we're going to get some body heat going. So I wrap my legs around her, and we start staring each other in the eyes, and she starts laughing. She's like, sorry, I'm so bad at this. And I said, me too. And I just planted one on her, boy.
Wait. We have
got the girl.
Well, let me tell hold on. Let's
all right. Sorry. I get excited because it's like my
in this
life.
moment,
like that.
Oh yeah. But you
moment where it's like, yeah.
Yes. Did you have that feeling? Because I did not get that from you at all.
My inner, what's that movie from the 80s where he like gets the girl and it like ends with him like, I think it's like Weird Science or something.
All right. So here's the reality of what James was like. So again, all this way up the mountain moments where I thought he was going to kiss me and he never did. So patient. I was like, okay, like whatever. I'm just here, right? I'm just present. So we're doing this eye gazing, and we're staring into each other's eyes. Oh my gosh, your eyes are so captivating. And I'm like blinking a lot. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not very good at this. I don't think you're supposed to blink so much when you're eye gazing. And I'm just like laughing. And you're like, that's okay. I'm not very good at this either. And he just slowly leans in for the kiss, grabs my face, leans in for the kiss. And it was like the most patient, exploratory, curious kiss I've ever experienced in my life. And I could just feel like you weren't trying to force anything. You weren't trying to like get after it. You weren't trying to like, I'm locking her down, you know. You were just genuinely, maybe I'm because I'm so intuitive, I could feel this in you, in your own space. We're like exploring, what is this? How does it feel? Do I like this? Does it feel good? Does it feel right? And I even pulled away and said, you're so gentle. And you said these words exactly. You said, well, I wanted to make sure it felt right. And I'm like, well, and how did it feel? And you were like, right.
Right. Yeah.
And that's when we both were just like, yeah. And you brought up a term. Can you tell me if I'm saying it wrong? What's the F word in German?
Well, I don't know the F word in German, but
Fernweh?
I actually do know the F word in German. But the word you're thinking, not that word, but Fernweh. It's
Fernweh.
Fernweh. It's FERNWEH,
And
and it literally means that it's a feeling of homesickness for a place that you've never been. And my entire life, I've kind of felt like that has been just sort of almost my default. I feel restless. I feel like I belong somewhere, but I never knew exactly where it was. And I think you even asked me, you said, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? And I said, Fernweh. And I said, it doesn't feel as strong now. Am I telling that story right?
Yep.
Like the first time I ever felt like that feeling
had dissipated
of homesickness had dissipated. Felt like I was closer to home than I had ever been.
And I didn't know what that word meant or even that word existed. But once he described that definition to me, I knew that what I was feeling was the same thing. Now, since then, we've had many more experiences like that, more intensely, I would say, because like it's just accelerated us now saying yes to the connection, whereas before we were just kind of like, what is this connection? Now that we've said yes, everything's been more intensified. But we've also discussed that at certain times in our life, it was like we were having a conversation or even just thoughts or ponders or writings or wonders, you know, of like we're having a conversation with somebody, but who and where, and like not myself, but I feel like I'm talking to like a part of myself. Like I don't know how to describe that other than those words. And James asks me about a very specific season time frame, like in 2018, and it was you know, he gave me no context, but I told him what was happening in my life and at that time, and we later recollected and understood that he was feeling what I was feeling at a very hard time in my life, and that our connection has always been there. We just have, it's almost like we've been on this ever longing pursuit and path and journey towards finding each other, by finding ourselves.
February 2018. Yeah, I'll never forget where I was during that time. I was in the most beautiful place I've ever been in my entire life. I lived out of a van in New Zealand. I was living on a lake. I was working at a beautiful restaurant. I was living my dream life. I was rock climbing every day. I was working at a restaurant. I was swimming in the lake, and I would be, gosh, I would just watch rainbows and sunsets and beautiful. And I was just like in this amazing place. I had friends and I was, living life to the fullest. And then, sorry, I'm trying to block the wind from the microphone. And I just remember sinking into this insane depression. And I knew it was not from me. I knew that that emotion that I was feeling was coming from outside of me. I just didn't know it at the time. But when we started to make all these like connections and observations about our lives, Sarah and I, and we started to realize like, oh, this is this. You're my twin flame.
Yes.
You're like the other half of me. God made you
For me. Yeah.
Then I asked her, I said, what was going on in February 2018? What were you doing? Because it was such a distinct time in my life where I was like, why am I depressed right now? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I so sad in this beautiful, wonderful place where it's peak summer, right? I'm in the Southern Hemisphere in February. It's peak summer and I'm feeling terrible. Summer is like my happy time. Summer is where I feel amazing. And she told me where she was. And I was like, oh, okay. Yep, I was feeling you. I was feeling where you were.
Yeah, and the spot that I was at was I was suffering. I was suffering hard. I was this was at the peak of right before the climactic end of my marriage. And I was just miserable. I was so miserable. I was suffering. I was trying to keep it all together. I had clients to serve. I had family that I couldn't really talk to about it. And I was just miserable.
And Sarah would reach out to me as a kid and look at the stars. And
I wrote to him. I have a journal entry that I'll never forget. And I had wrote to him like, I wonder if I would just be looking up at the stars. And I wasn't necessarily, I've always had a joyful demeanor, but I wasn't necessarily happy because I was always in chaotic and family that was constantly fighting. So inside myself was my solitude and my place to connect. And I would connect with James unbeknowingly to me and look up at the stars and write this journal entry of like, I wonder if you're looking at the same stars as me. Like, I wonder where you are. And I would have moments of my life too, where I was like, I feel like someone's observing me. I know they're not here. Obviously, I don't feel like there's a peeping Tom, but I feel like someone's with me or observing me or sensing me or something. And I had always held on to that hope that that person is out there. And I think even getting married, I knew that it wasn't, I know that it wasn't right for me, that person, but nothing fit. With the puzzle pieces were always jammed together. And because they were jammed together, there was suffering and friction and eventual breakdown. And I always finally got to a point where I was like, I'm no longer going to settle for those types of relationships until I find this person, this connection that I know is out there, because that feels right to me. It feels like it should be that way. It feels like God would design something like that. It only makes sense for the world to be with someone he's specifically made for you and you for them, so that you can consciously create more of those beings together. You know what I mean? And so finally I was just like, I'm not settling. I will rather be alone than to settle for something less than what I know is possible, which I now know is between you and I. And I'm so glad that I didn't settle. And I'm so glad that you didn't settle. And I'm so glad it was like the beautiful thing about our journey is that the road to each other, the only way we got to that road was because we took the journey of self. We went inside. We took the journey of healing and discovering ourselves in order to discover the other half of ourselves in each other. But we couldn't have done that if we didn't do that by ourselves first.
Yeah.
And
Did
that
the
takes
work.
time.
Time and energy.
Yeah. And it takes however long or however short we want it to be. But it's like you can't put a timeline or a progress even needle on it, because you can be say like, oh, I'm ahead now, or I'm making progress, because it's all just different, right? It's different shifts of the heart that once you can drop into that certain heart space, you know you're there. And all of the other workings, just like everything has culminated to, okay, I'm in love now.
And
Before
that
I
takes
wasn't.
everyone a different amount of time.
Exactly.
I tell Sarah, she's like 2 years older than me, a little older than 2 years older than me. And I was like, God had to give you a head start.
Yes. Yeah. We joke about that. I'm like, he's like, it only took you 31 years. And, but you're so much older than 31, like, or this time around, this earth years, you're 31, but you're just as ancient as I am. I'm just as ancient as you are. So, and I'm like, well, it took you 33 years. So I've been 2 years longer on this.
God had to give you a little head start.
Yeah. So, we'll be back. We'll be back for more masculine, feminine discussions. Because it's so important, right? It's so important. And this was just like a 2 millimeter layer and level of what's really deep at the underbelly of not only personal individual healing, but relational healing. And then what happens next is collective healing at a humanity level, which is really what we're all seeing right now. Like the thing is all states of distress, anything other than peace, comes from a clash of masculine, feminine, and of course, evil forces too. We didn't even get to talk about that. But we will.
We didn't get to talk about a couple things, like the evil thing that happened outside of us, and maybe that's something that we could talk about next time. But
yeah, we should talk about we can talk about the the individual harmony of the masculine, feminine, how it flows like that in the balance, and then how to navigate attacks. Not only in your relationship, but also on yourself, like on your soul.
Yes.
I know when I'm being attacked, when I go into wounded masculine, like, nope, all right, I'm shutting down, which is kind of what I did in that point. Okay, shield is up. My shield went up.
And then you were able to nurture it.
I was able to
but we will
nurture
talk
it.
about that more next time. I think.
Yes.
I think that's
No,
I don't know.
I would.
We've already been on this for what, 2 hours?
2 hours. Which is like a regular phone call for us, babe.
It's so true. We'll get off the phone, or we'll be talking till 10:30 at night, which is way past her bedtime. And she's like, babe, I gotta go to sleep. And I'm like, holy crap, we've been talking for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like every single time. It's like,
it's just so easy.
She's a time warp.
Well, I could say the same for you. So we have been on for 2 hours. We'll talk about that story later. But shall we exit the same way we entered, with some stick figure?
Let's do it. I love the stick figure.
And eventually we will have to play our own song.
Yeah. We are writing a song right now. Sarah wrote a verse, and we're going to co-write our last verse. But yeah, it kind of started out with a song dedicated to her. And then I just sort of hit a roadblock with the lyrics. I wrote one verse and I was like, none of the lyrics seem right. And I was kind of thinking of it, but I didn't want to ask her. And she actually asked me, and she's like, what if I'm supposed to write the next verse? And I was
I
like,
said, I think I'm supposed to write in the next verse to the song.
yeah. And I said, I think you are. And she sent me the lyrics yesterday or the day before, and they're beautiful. And I think the last verse with us together is going to be something special. So maybe our next podcast will actually be doing it from the same location, and we'll be able to write and play our song together. So
yes. Yeah, I think it's powerful testimony to our love too, to be able to have this strong of a union, being a distance relationship right now, temporarily. So there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope in that. And this is currently our song. You guys, thank you so much for listening. This was one of my longer ones, but it's well worth it. We'll be back for more. You can find James and his photography at Horse Whistler Photography on Instagram, right?
Yep, Horse Whistler Photography. That was my trail name on the Pacific Crest Trail. Thanks for having me on, love. I'm glad I got to talk to you and just share with all of your listeners our love. And I can't wait to share with you all of my love for as long as our lives go on.
You already are. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening. Again, please, please, please share this. Listen to it with your significant other. Do it by yourself. Send it to someone you know will bring value to. And until next time, we will talk to you very soon.
Mwah.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Ignite the Spark Within. If this podcast brought you value, or you think it would bring someone else value, please hit that share button. My mission is to reach and help as many people as I possibly can, and you just never know who could use that one good piece of information. And hey, if you have any topics, discussion questions, or ideas for future episodes, you can reach me directly at sarah@sparkflc.com and just write podcast in the subject line. And if you haven't already, please rate the podcast on your favorite podcast channel. This helps bring awareness to the show. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're alerted for all future episodes. Please go ahead and follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you're interested in pursuing coaching for yourself, you can visit sparkflc.com for more information.